But we wanted to just show you really briefly. I was talking about that sighting earlier from across the street. Here's a piece of it. I mean, it must have come 300 or 400 yards. It's just absolutely incredible, the power of this wind. And once you get back here, you can get a really good look at what's happening. You have to watch out. There's a lot of broken glass. There's things from inside the house. They had to break all of these windows to make sure everybody was out. And when you come back here into the backyard, you get an idea of just how severe this was. Johnson, can you explain what you were doing in the Galapagos Islands according to that audit? Do you have any reaction, any apology you feel like is owed to the taxpayers? No comment. What happened with the change of faith? You entered a not guilty plea last time. Now we're pleading guilty to wire fraud. Can you explain that? But because the storm is moving so slowly, that poses a huge threat even for additional rainfall. Now, if we step inside, most of the tree, as it relates to here in the living room, has been removed from the house. But look, I mean, you can look up. There's more tree. Everything is wet. Solicitor Hubbard reminding the jury of that testimony that they heard almost 3 weeks ago. They say earlier this morning, this person driving this car, decided to come onto the beach to check out what was going on and quickly found themselves stuck. It appears as if the jury did not believe that he suffered from any kind of mental illness whatsoever on that day of August 28, 2014, when those 5 children were brutally murdered. They say that storm surge came at about 11:30 on Thursday and did not recede until about 6 or 7 o'clock on Thursday night. Get back in the car. Close the door, sir. Get back in the car. Sir. Just like that, guys. That's how quickly a life and death situation can happen. These QR codes would be in a sticker form, and it would be on the passenger side window of the Uber or the Lyft. Well, guys, considering the relative silence that we've gotten from the Columbia Housing Authority, this letter from the Columbia Fire Department is fairly damning. All we know is that 40 or so hotel rooms have been secured or on standby, according to Columbia Housing Authority. But like you said, there's 400 people who live here, so a lot remains to be seen. And a lot of these people tell me they can't afford the costs that come along with being uprooted like this, Judy. That truck, basically the entire cab of it is inside that unit. I want you to look down to the corner here. You can hear the sirens coming. We've called 911, but you can see this tree completely uprooted, even with the sod out of the ground here at the corner of Bull and Gervais Streets. Officials with the Office of the Inspector General have been here at Allen Benedict Court Apartments all week, surveying the entire property as well as Building J, aiding in an investigation that spans multiple agencies at the local, state, and federal level. Experts recommend the average person should drink 8 8-ounce glasses of water a day. But after Logan was admitted to the hospital, his doctors found he was drinking 10 times that, nearly 640 ounces of water a day. The water rose about 6 feet over the course of 5 days here on the Intracoastal Waterway, and all of that was captured on this GoPro. Now, nearly 6 months later, the only water that remains is what's stuck inside this glass sliding door. As you take a walk through downtown Nichols, it appears as if time is standing still. Every storefront window is empty, but those who remain are still very full of hope. Thousands of people visit the Congaree River every year for recreation, but lurking beneath the surface is that sticky coal tar, which DHEC deemed a hazard to human health, as it's chock full of chemicals and carcinogens.
13 days have passed since 2 men were found dead in their Allen Benedict Court apartments. And since then, a whirlwind for more than 400 residents, many of whom are still waiting to learn where they'll live.
When we first got here, my son kept asking, can we go home? And I tried to explain to him, like, no, we don't have a home right now no more. We can't go back to our home.
Now, we're just learning someone was transported to the hospital 1 day before these bodies were found, suffering from symptoms of a gas leak. Cyanide, carbon monoxide, and more found in mass concentration coming from one apartment. Nearly 2 weeks later, questions still remain.
It's been 2 weeks, and you're saying none of you have discussed this together as a board. Why? I guess why is that?
What do you want me to say?
WIS continues to dig for answers.
A new report from Columbia Police reveals 30-year-old Derek Roper was found lying in the hallway outside of the bathroom when first responders entered apartment J1 at Allen Benedict Court. 2 doors down in unit J3, Calvin Witherspoon Jr. was discovered lying in his bed unresponsive. Firefighters found several gases present in the building, with the highest concentrations coming from unit J2, the unit in between where the 2 victims were found. Earlier that morning, the report says the resident living in that unit was transported to the hospital with neck and back injuries. We took our questions to Alex Fergus, a commissioner on the Columbia Housing Authority board. Have you had any correspondence between the commissioners about what has transpired since in the last week and a half?
We haven't had a meeting.
So nothing has been discussed despite 2 people being found dead and the toxicology reports coming back. You guys haven't said anything to each other about what the future looks like?
What do you want us to say? Except that we're just so sorry that this happened.
The police report indicates the day before the 2 bodies were found, another resident in the building was taken to the hospital suffering symptoms of a gas leak. Still, Burgess says she and her fellow board members have not discussed anything, despite 400 residents being displaced and still seeking permanent housing. It just strikes us as odd that no one has been talking about this as the Board of Commissioners, and it's been 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks, and you're saying none of you have discussed this together as a board. Why? I guess why is that?
What do you want me to say, honestly?
Every morning, Travis Kinley walks to his pasture to feed his 2 horses and his donkey, Nathan. Usually it's quiet, but last Thursday he made an exception after an online joke spilled over onto his farm.
Someone else says, yeah, the circle of life, that'll be your pre-sermon hymnal, you know? And I'm like, all right, well, y'all keep playing around, you don't know me like that, like I can really do that.
Up to the challenge, Kinley says he pulled out his phone and hit record and started singing. And to his amazement, he wasn't alone.
And I'm looking at the camera and I'm seeing him on my phone camera. I'm like, I cannot believe this is actually happening right now. You know what I mean?
Kinley says he expected the video to get a few likes and shares online, but never imagined he and Nathan would become internet famous, receiving messages from people all over the world.
And most people are just saying, you know, wow, thanks so much for the laugh. You know, we're so glad to have something positive floating around, you know. And I think the most rewarding ones have said, like, man, I really needed to feel some sort of joy. I was going through a tough time.
So when we visited, we had to put Nathan's skills to the test. Could he perform in front of a live audience? After shaking off the nerves and getting a feel for the beat, Nathan put his best hoof forward. Kinley says being loud, well, it's just Nathan's thing.
Imagine if you were a really loud animal and you barely met anybody as loud as you, you know? And finally someone yells around you and you're like, yes, there are more of my kind.
So what's next for Nathan?
One day I'll have to try to learn Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You and see what he does.
And Nathan is certainly up for the challenge.